He fired 5 families over candles. Then one made secret ring, destroyed his empire. The Obsidian Cliff estate loomed like a blade against the northern California fog. 12-foot steel doors hissed open at 8:14 p.m. Cyrus Kane's Maybach rolled in silent as a hearse. He had closed a $2.7 billion deal in Singapore that morning. 14 hours of negotiations, shoulders tight, migraine already carving behind his left eye. The moment he crossed the marble threshold, the wrong smell punched him in the throat. Sweet, heavy, clinging, vanilla, not the sharp, clean cedar smoke he demanded in every single room, his one non-negotiable rule. Patricia Morales, head of housekeeping for exactly 43 days, stepped forward with the smile she had practiced in the mirror for senators and CEOs. "Mr. Kane, I thought after such a long trip the house could use something warmer." "Vanilla is proven to lower cortisol." Cyrus set his briefcase down. The click echoed like a gunshot. He never raised his voice. He never had to. "Where are my cedar candles?" Patricia's smile flickered. "We replaced the nearly empty ones, sir. They were stubs. I assumed, you assumed." The word landed like a scalpel. In the next 9 minutes and 40 seconds, 5 lives were erased. Patricia Morales, single mother, 2 boys under 10, rent due in 4 days. Marco Ruiz, head chef, wife battling cancer, insurance tied to this job. Leela Chen, night cleaner, putting her little sister through college. Jamal Washington, groundskeeper, first real job after prison, trying to stay clean. Elena Torres, junior assistant, pregnant with her first child. Security guards in black polo shirts boxed their belongings in silence while Cyrus watched from the foyer, arms folded. Elena's hands shook so hard her name tag fell off. Jamal kept whispering, "It's okay, man, it's okay," to no one. Marco's phone recorded everything in his pocket. "You may leave now," Cyrus said, the same calm tone he used to close billion-dollar mergers. The front doors closed behind them with a soft, final thud. By 11:47 p.m., the video was everywhere. Marco's shaky pocket footage hit TikTok first, then X, then Reddit, then the evening news. Number candle killer trended worldwide within 90 minutes. Comments flooded in like blood in water. "Fired a pregnant woman over a candle. Satan has a new name. My mom worked for rich people. This is why we eat the rich. Someone dox him. I'm not joking. GoFundMe for the Obsidian 5 crashed the platform twice. $412,000 in 6 hours. Outside the estate gates, protesters appeared before sunrise, handmade signs dripping with red paint. Your empire smells like cruelty, cedar, compassion. Kane equals monster. His stock dropped 4.8% before the opening bell. Board members texted him at 5 a.m. "Fix this or we vote you out." At the Pacific Heights charity brunch the same morning, Victoria Langford stirred her mimosa and laughed behind her hand. "Darling, he fired them over candles. Can you imagine? My girl would burn the house down if I tried that." The table chuckled, but their eyes darted. Every one of them had taken Cyrus Kane's money at some point. Every one of them was terrified it could be their staff next. Meanwhile, in a one-bedroom apartment in Oakland, Patricia Morales opened her front door to find an eviction notice taped over the peephole. Her 6-year-old son asked why all their boxes were already packed. She sat on the floor and cried so quietly the neighbors never heard. Cyrus Kane stood alone in his 18,000-square-foot fortress that night. He lit the last remaining cedar candle himself. The flame hissed and popped. Smoke curled upward like a question he refused to answer. The house was perfectly silent, perfectly clean, perfectly empty. He poured 3 fingers of 30-year Macallan and stared at his reflection in the black glass wall overlooking the crashing Pacific. Empty eyes stared back. He told himself they were all replaceable. They always wanted more attention, raises, gratitude. He gave them money. They gave him silence. That was the deal. But tonight the silence felt heavier than usual. He didn't know that the next housekeeper the agency was sending had waited 20 years for this exact moment. And she was carrying the one object that could make the entire world watch while his empire burned. Tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m., a woman named Willa Chen would walk through the service entrance carrying nothing but a small copper ring on her finger, the exact ring a 12-year-old orphan boy once twisted for her in a junkyard behind Mercy House. Cyrus Kane had no idea she was coming, and he had no idea the monster he had become was about to meet the only person who still remembered the boy he used to be. The Pacific Heights brunch room smelled of fresh orchids and old money. Crystal chandeliers caught the midday light like knives. Victoria Langford raised her mimosa, voice honeyed with just enough pity to sound civilized. "Fired 5 people over candles. Can you imagine the entitlement? My own girl would never presume to change the scent profile. Some staff simply don't understand boundaries." Laughter rippled around the table, tight, careful laughter. Every woman present had accepted Cyrus Kane's 6-figure donations for their galas. Every one of them pictured their own housekeeper's face if the same thing happened tomorrow. At the far end sat Margaret Chen, a tech investor's wife who had once shaken Cyrus's hand at Davos. She smiled along, but her fork trembled against the plate. She knew the single mother who had been fired, Patricia Morales, had cleaned her vacation home last summer. She said nothing. Across the bay in Oakland, Patricia Morales stood on the cracked sidewalk while a county marshal taped the bright orange eviction notice to her door. Her 6-year-old son clutched her leg. "Mommy, why are the men taking our stuff?" Patricia's voice stayed steady for him. "We're going on an adventure, baby, just like in your books." Inside, her hands shook so badly she dropped the box of cereal twice. The GoFundMe had reached $412,000, but the money wouldn't clear for days, and the landlord wanted his apartment back now. Neighbors filmed from their windows. One clip already had 2.3 million views. Single mom evicted after billionaire fires her over vanilla. Where is the justice? Cyrus Kane watched the clip once on his private monitor at 11:03 a.m. He closed it without expression, then opened a new agency file from Helen Reed's shadow service. 6 new teams were shortlisted. He rejected 4 because the candidates listed empathy as a strength. "Empathy is noise," he typed in the notes field. "Send only ghosts." By 2 p.m., the first replacement team arrived, 3 women, 2 men, all promised invisible excellence. Cyrus met them in the foyer exactly as he had met the last group. Rule 1: nothing changes. Not the candles, not the light temperature, not the placement of a single object. You are furniture that breathes. Understood? They nodded like people who needed the $185,000 annual salary. Team 1 lasted 14 days. The infraction: one pillow on the study sofa had been rotated 180 degrees. Cyrus made the youngest housekeeper, barely 22, still paying off student loans, rearrange every cushion in the 42-square-foot great room while he sat in silence and watched. When she finally finished at 1:17 a.m., he said quietly, "If you cannot keep orientation, you cannot keep employment." She cried on the security feed. The footage leaked by morning. TikTok stitched it with the original candle video. The new caption read, "Same monster, different victim. How many more before we burn his house down?" Team 2 lasted 9 days. Coffee arrived at 6:49 instead of 6:47. Cyrus poured the entire French press down the marble sink in front of the housekeeper, a 54-year-old Filipina grandmother who had worked for 3 presidents' families. The splash hit her shoes. He did not raise his voice. "Time is the only thing I cannot buy back. You have wasted 36 seconds of mine. Pack your things." Her daughter posted the security audio on Reddit. The thread hit 187,000 upvotes in 4 hours. Top comment: "This man doesn't have employees. He has emotional support punching bags." Cyrus read the comments at 3 a.m. while the Pacific crashed against the cliffs below his bedroom. His migraine throbbed in perfect time with the waves. He told himself these people were weak. Weak people needed drama, gratitude, small acts of humanity. He needed order. That was all. But the silence in the house now carried a new weight, like the air itself remembered every fired voice. He lit another cedar candle and watched the flame bend in the draft from the floor-to-ceiling glass. For the first time in years, he wondered what the boy who once twisted copper wire in a Portland junkyard would think of the man he had become. He pushed the thought away like smoke. By the end of the month, 3 more teams had been dismantled with surgical precision, each firing colder, each video leak sharper. Protesters outside the gate now numbered over 200. Someone had projected "Monster" in red light across the black glass facade every night at 9 p.m. Cyrus's board called an emergency meeting. "Your image is radioactive. Host the damn gala or we replace you." He agreed, only because the stock had now dropped 7.1% and 3 major clients had quietly moved their contracts. He had no idea that the next name on Helen Reed's list was Willa Chen, a name he had buried 20 years ago behind Mercy House gates, a woman who still wore the crooked copper ring he had made for her when he was 12 and still believed love could be earned instead of bought. Tomorrow at 5:30 a.m., she would walk through the service entrance carrying nothing but quiet competence and the one object that could make the entire world watch, while Cyrus Kane finally looked in the mirror and saw the monster staring back. The first replacement team arrived under gray dawn light, their shadows stretching long across the black basalt driveway. 5 new faces, all carrying the same wary hope Cyrus had seen in every applicant since the original 5 were escorted out. He met them in the foyer at precisely 5:45 am. The cedar candles were already lit, perfect wax pools, no drips, lights dimmed to 28.0 Kelvin, coffee timer set to 6:47 sharp. "Rule 1, he said, voice low and even, "you do not exist until I need something." then you appear, then you vanish. No conversation, no questions, no initiative. Understood. They nodded in unison. Team 1 survived 14 days. The violation was subtle. The study sofa's center pillow had been rotated 180 degrees during vacuuming. Cyrus noticed the misalignment at 10:22 p.m. while reviewing quarterly projections. He summoned the youngest member, Sophia Reyes, 23, community college dropout paying off medical debt for her mother's chemo. "Fix it," he said. Sophia refluffed every cushion in the 42-square-foot great room while Cyrus sat motionless in the Eames chair, watching. She finished at 1:14 a.m., hands trembling from exhaustion. "If you cannot maintain orientation," he told her quietly, "you cannot maintain employment." She broke then, not loudly. Just a soft, choking sound that echoed off the glass walls. The security camera caught it all, her shoulders shaking, tears falling onto the velvet upholstery she had just smoothed. Sophia's roommate uploaded the clip at 2:03 a.m. By breakfast it had 8.7 million views. TikTok algorithm fed it to everyone who had ever searched number candle killer. Duets appeared within hours, people crying in solidarity, others screaming into their phones. "This is why we can't have nice things, because monsters like him exist." Team 2 lasted 9 days. The infraction: coffee arrived at 6:49 instead of 6:47. 2 minutes. Cyrus stood at the marble island, poured the entire French press down the sink in front of Maria Delgado, 54, grandmother of 4, former White House sous chef who had left DC for family reasons. Hot liquid splashed her sensible black shoes. She flinched but made no sound. "Time," Cyrus said, "is the only currency I cannot manufacture more of. You have wasted 36 seconds of mine." Maria packed her knife roll in silence. Her daughter posted the audio that night. Reddit's r/Antwork thread exploded, 187,000 upvotes, 14,000 comments. Top reply: "He doesn't pay people to clean. He pays them to disappear when he's done humiliating them." By the third team, the protests outside the gates had grown into a small encampment. Solar lights, folding chairs, a generator powering a projector that looped the Sophia clip on repeat against the black glass facade every night at 9 o'clock sharp. Someone spray-painted "Human Beings, not furniture" on the service road in red. Security power-washed it off before Cyrus woke. He never mentioned it. Team 4 was let go because a faint trace of lavender laundry detergent lingered on a freshly pressed shirt. Cyrus held the collar to his nose, inhaled once, then said, "You have contaminated my space." The housekeeper, a quiet man in his 40s who had lost his construction job during the last recession, did not argue. He simply gathered his things and left. His wife later posted a photo of their empty refrigerator on Instagram with the caption, "Thank you, Mr. Kane, for reminding us how replaceable we are." The post went viral. 3.1 million likes. Brands that had quietly sponsored Cyrus's tech summits began deleting old photos. Cyrus read the comments at 4:17 a.m. while the Pacific hammered the cliffs below. His migraine pulsed in rhythm with the waves. He told himself these people exaggerated for attention. Drama was cheap. Order was expensive. But the house felt different now. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was watchful. Every cedar candle flame seemed to lean away from him. He began leaving the lights off in rooms he wasn't using. The darkness felt safer than reflection. By the end of month 3, 6 full teams had been dismantled, each exit colder, each leak louder, each viral moment sharper. His PR director begged in a late-night email, "Host the gala. One night, show them you're human. The board is circling." Cyrus stared at the screen until the words blurred. He typed one line in reply, "Fine, make it happen." He had no idea the agency was preparing to send the 7th candidate, a woman named Willa Chen, who still wore, on the 4th finger of her left hand, the crooked copper ring twisted by a 12-year-old boy in the junkyard behind Mercy House 20 years earlier. A ring the color of pale sea glass, the exact shade of the eyes now staring back at him from every viral thumbnail, hollow and unblinking. In 48 hours, the Obsidian Cliff estate would blaze with chandeliers and string quartets for the most expensive damage control party in tech history. And somewhere in the shadows, Willa Chen would be directing waitstaff, wearing gray, staying invisible, until a drunk heiress grabbed her wrist, mocked her trash jewelry, and let the ring fall to the marble with a sound that would echo louder than any protest chant. The Obsidian Cliff estate glowed against the November night like a cruise ship that had run aground on the rocks. 180 hand-picked guests, senators, venture capitalists, 3 Nobel laureates, a handful of influencers paid to post tastefully, moved through the Great Hall under crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes. String quartet played Vivaldi, white roses cascaded from every surface, champagne flowed in silent rivers. Cyrus Kane stood at the center in bespoke charcoal wool, accepting handshakes with the same measured smile he used for closing rounds. His PR director had drilled the script. Tonight we show warmth. Tonight we show humanity. He nodded once. In the shadows behind the bar, Willa Chen directed temporary waitstaff with quiet gestures, gray uniform. Dark hair in a low, practical knot. No makeup. No jewelry visible except the small copper ring on her left hand. Twisted wire holding a pale blue piece of sea glass worn smooth by 20 years of salt and silence. She had arrived 3 days earlier at 5:30 a.m. through the service entrance. No fanfare, no introduction. Helen Reed's file had promised ghost-level competence. Willa delivered. Cedar candles restored to exact burn levels. Lights shifted to migraine-safe amber. Cucumber lemon water placed beside his espresso machine at 6:45 every morning, never acknowledged, never commented on. Cyrus had noticed the changes. He had not thanked her. He had, however, canceled 2 near firings in the first 48 hours because the flaws he spotted were microscopic. A single fingerprint ghost on a wineglass stem, a napkin folded 1 millimeter off-center. Each time he opened his mouth to deliver the quiet verdict, something in the house's new stillness stopped him. He told himself it was fatigue. Now, at 11:42 p.m., Eleanor Whitmore, heiress to a shipping fortune, fourth glass of Dom Perignon in hand, swayed near the fireplace. Crimson gown, diamond choker glittering like frost. She was laughing too loudly at her own joke when her elbow caught the stem of her glass. Red wine arced through the air in a perfect, slow-motion crescent. Willa appeared from nowhere. One step, one pivot. She placed herself between Eleanor and the priceless silk drapes Cyrus had imported from Kyoto. The wine hit her gray uniform in a dark, spreading bloom across the chest. Eleanor blinked, then flushed crimson. "You clumsy little thing," she hissed, volume rising, heads turned, phones lifted. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Willa's voice stayed level, soft, professional. "Sorry." Eleanor's laugh cracked like glass. "Do you have any idea how much this gown cost? More than you'll see in 10 lifetimes of scrubbing floors." The quartet faltered. A single violin note hung in the air. Eleanor's gaze dropped to Willa's left hand. "What is that?" She seized Willa's wrist without asking. Nails dug in. "Is that trash? Copper wire and a piece of broken beach glass. My God, the desperation." Willa did not pull away. She stood still, absorbing the grip like stone absorbs rain. Eleanor twisted harder. "Let me see this garbage up close." The ring, worn loose from decades of daily wear, slid free. It hit the marble floor with a small, clear clink. The sound cut through the music like a blade. Every phone in the room captured it. Cyrus, 30 feet away, felt the noise in his sternum before his ears registered it. He moved, not quickly, not dramatically. Just a straight line through the crowd, ignoring the senator who reached for his sleeve, stepping around waiters who scrambled aside. Guests parted like water. He reached the spot, dropped to one knee. The marble was cold through wool trousers. He would have bruises tomorrow. The ring had rolled against the base of a white rose arrangement. Cyrus picked it up between thumb and forefinger, hands that had signed contracts worth nations, trembling now. He pulled a monogrammed silk square from his breast pocket, wiped the wine droplet from the sea glass with care usually reserved for rare earth prototypes. The room had gone deathly quiet. Even the quartet had stopped. Cyrus rose. Turned to face Eleanor Whitmore. "Mrs. Whitmore." His voice remained quiet, always quiet. "You may purchase this entire estate if the mood strikes you. You may purchase the land beneath it, the ocean in front of it, every chandelier hanging above us." He took Willa's hand, gently, so gently, and slid the ring back onto her finger. The copper settled into its familiar groove like it had never left. "But you do not have enough money in every account you and your husband have ever touched to purchase the right to lay a finger on this ring." Eleanor's face drained white. "Mr. Kane, I didn't. Your car is waiting." He turned his back. The gala erupted. Whispers became murmurs, became shouts. Phones kept recording. Willa stood frozen, eyes locked on Cyrus's retreating shoulders. She had not expected recognition. Not tonight, not ever. But the way he had held her hand, reverent, trembling, told her everything. He knew, and now the world would know something too. The clips hit the internet before the last guest left. One angle showed Cyrus dropping to his knees. Another caught Eleanor's face twisting from triumph to terror. A third captured the ring clinking on marble, clean, unmistakable audio. By 2:14 a.m., the hashtag #NumberRingRedemption was trending beside Number Candle Killer. The internet split in two, half screaming, "Monster finally shows a heart," half screaming, "Too little, too late, where was this humanity when he fired a pregnant woman?" Cyrus stood alone on the terrace overlooking the black Pacific. Wind tore at his jacket. He stared at his left hand, empty, and felt the ghost weight of copper that wasn't there. He had spent 20 years burying that boy. Tonight the boy had clawed his way back up through marble and wine and one small, perfect sound. And Cyrus had no idea how to put him back in the ground. By morning, Willa Chen would leave a single sheet of paper on the kitchen island, her resignation in neat handwriting, and disappear into the fog carrying the ring, the memory, and every reason Cyrus Kane would finally have to chase something money could not buy. Dawn came cold and gray over the Pacific. The estate looked smaller in the thin light, less fortress, more mausoleum. Willa Chen moved through the service corridors before the first staff member arrived. She had not slept. The wine stain on her gray uniform had dried stiff overnight. She had not bothered to change. In the kitchen, she set the espresso machine to brew at 6:47 exactly. She placed the cucumber lemon water beside it. Same glass, same slice ratio, same quiet offering. Then she took one sheet of plain white paper from the drawer where Cyrus kept his personal stationery. No letterhead, no flourish, just her neat, unhurried handwriting. She wrote, "Mr. Kane, I apologize for the disruption at the gala. My presence became inappropriate the moment recognition occurred. The ring you replaced on my finger was made by a boy I knew at Mercy House. He was 12, I was 10. He promised me a real one someday, something heavy with diamonds. I told him I preferred the one he made from junkyard wire and beach glass because it matched his eyes. I kept it, every day, through foster transfers, through nights when the only thing that felt permanent was the small weight on my finger. I did not come here to collect on childhood promises. I came because the agency paid well and because I have always been good at being unseen. I believed I could do the job without disturbing your order. I was wrong. You are not the boy who believed love could be earned with twisted copper. That boy is gone. The man who knelt on marble last night was trying to resurrect him for an audience. I do not want a performance. I do not want pity. I do not want the version of you that only appears when cameras are rolling. I wish you peace in the silence you have built. You deserve more than the emptiness you have chosen, but only you can decide whether you are willing to pay the price to reclaim it. Goodbye, Willa Chen. She folded the page once, placed it exactly where the cucumber water usually stood, center of the island, parallel to the grain of the marble. Then she walked out the service door. No suitcase, no backward glance. Just the soft click of the latch and the fog swallowing her silhouette. Cyrus found the letter at 6:52 a.m. The espresso had finished brewing. Steam rose in thin, perfect spirals. The cucumber water sat untouched. He read the first line standing. The second line made him sit. By the fourth line, his hands were shaking so badly the paper rattled. He read it twice, then 3 times. Then he pressed the sheet flat against the marble as though pressure could make the words less true. The house was silent in a way it had never been before. Not peaceful, not orderly, just absent. No faint footfalls in the hallway. No subtle shift of light temperature at dusk. No small glass of water waiting like a question he had never answered. He walked the room slowly. Study, desk surface gleaming, no fingerprints. Library. Books aligned by spine height, redwood candle burned to the exact level it had been yesterday. Master suite, shirts pressed with military precision, yet the collar of his favorite blue Oxford carried the faintest trace of cedar smoke, as though she had held it to her face for a moment before hanging it. In the great room he stopped at the spot where the ring had fallen. A single dark drop of wine still stained the marble. Housekeeping had not yet reached it. He knelt again, not for cameras this time. Just to touch the place where copper had met stone. His thumb traced the invisible circle. 20 years. He had known where she was for 11 of them. Private investigators, database searches. Annual updates slipped into encrypted folders labeled personal. Photos of her walking to night classes. Photos of her mother's funeral. Photos of her applying for yet another housekeeping position. He had told himself looking was enough. Knowing was control. Reaching out would be weakness. Now the folder felt like ash in his memory. He stood, walked to his office, opened the encrypted drive. The last photo was dated 3 months ago. Willa leaving a laundromat in Oakland, plastic bag in hand, copper ring catching afternoon light. He stared until the screen timed out. Outside, the protesters had thinned but not vanished. A few signs still leaned against the gate. One read, "Money can't buy a soul." Cyrus closed the laptop. For the first time in decades, he felt the full weight of the house pressing down, not its square footage, but its emptiness. He had built a life designed to keep everyone at arm's length. Now the length felt infinite. He picked up his keys, not the Maybach fob, the old Ford F-150 key, 23 years old, kept in a locked drawer because it was the first thing he had ever bought with money he earned himself. The engine turned over on the second try. He drove past the remaining protesters without looking at them. The fog clung to the coastal highway like regret. He did not know her exact address. He had never let the investigators go that far, but he knew the neighborhood. Row houses, peeling paint, the smell of exhaust and fried onions. He parked 2 blocks away, sat behind the wheel for 47 minutes, watched people come and go, then he saw her. Willa walking home from a shift somewhere else, grease stains on her jacket, plastic bag swinging from one hand. She stopped when she saw the truck. For a long moment neither moved, 20 feet of cracked sidewalk between them. 20 years behind them, she spoke first, voice quiet, steady. You shouldn't be here. Cyrus opened the door, stepped out. I read your letter. She looked at the ground. Then you know why I left. I know why you think you left. He took one step closer. I'm here to ask you to hear why I need you to stay. On that ordinary sidewalk, under ordinary fog, Cyrus Kane, the man who had fired families over candles and silenced entire rooms with a glance, was about to beg for the first time in his life, and the answer would either save him or finish breaking what little was left of the boy she once loved. The fog hung low over the Oakland row houses, turning streetlights into soft halos. Cyrus Kane stood beside the old Ford F-150, engine still ticking as it cooled. He had not turned it off. Some part of him feared the silence that would follow if he did. Willa stopped 10 feet away, plastic grocery bag dangling from her fingers. Grease stain on the sleeve of her jacket from whatever shift had just ended. Her eyes, steady, unreadable, met his without flinching. You shouldn't be here, she repeated, softer this time, not a warning, a fact. I read the letter. Cyrus's voice came out rougher than he intended. He cleared his throat, twice, then 3 times. Willa looked down at the cracked sidewalk. A single weed pushed through the fissure between slabs. She studied it like it held answers. Then you know why I left, she said. I know what you wrote. He took one careful step forward, not crowding, just closing half the distance. I don't know if you believe it. Her gaze lifted. Which part? That I'm not the boy anymore. That the man who knelt last night was performing for cameras. Willa's lips pressed into a thin line. You dropped to one knee in front of 200 people holding phones. You spoke loud enough for microphones to catch every word. If that wasn't performance, what was it? Cyrus exhaled. The breath fogged between them. It was instinct. The second I heard that ring hit the marble, he stopped, swallowed. I wasn't thinking about optics. I was thinking about the junkyard behind Mercy House. About the afternoon, you found me trying to twist wire into something that didn't look like failure. You handed me that piece of sea glass and said it matched my eyes. I promised you a diamond someday. You laughed and said you'd rather keep the one I was making because it was already mine. Willa's fingers tightened on the bag handle. Plastic crinkled. I kept my promise, Cyrus said quietly. I got rich, obscenely rich. I could buy every diamond in every vault on this coast, but I never looked for you, not really. You knew where I was. It wasn't a question. He nodded once. 11 years, investigators, updates, photos. I told myself knowing was enough. Reaching out would be selfish. You had moved on. You deserved better than a man who had turned himself into. He gestured vaguely at the truck, at himself, at the invisible weight of everything he carried. This, Willa's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. You tracked me like a project, like due diligence, and then you hired me without knowing it was me, or maybe you did know. Maybe Helen Reed's file crossed your desk and you thought, perfect, invisible, exactly what I need. I didn't know. The words came out raw, not until the gala, not until the ring fell. Silence stretched. A distant car horn blared. Someone's television flickered blue light through a window across the street. Willa spoke again. When I walked into the obsidian cliff that first morning, I told myself I could do the job, restore the candles, dim the lights, leave the water. Disappear. I told myself seeing you every day from the shadows would be enough closure. I was wrong. She lifted her left hand. The copper ring caught the street lamp's glow, slightly crooked, sea glass pale as winter sky. I kept this because it reminded me someone once believed I was worth keeping a promise for, even a silly one made by children in a junkyard. I kept it because it was proof that softness could exist inside hardness. And then I watched you fire people, good people, for infractions so small they barely existed. I watched you watch Sophia cry on camera and not blink. I watched you pour Maria's coffee down the sink like it was nothing. And every time I thought, that boy is gone, he died somewhere between the junkyard and the boardroom. Cyrus's throat worked. He didn't die. He just learned how to survive by making sure no one could ever leave first. Willa's laugh was small, broken. That's not surviving, that's embalming. Another step. He was close enough now to smell the faint trace of fryer oil on her jacket, the clean soap she still used, the same brand from Mercy House laundry days. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I'm not asking you to come back to the house. I'm asking you to let me prove I can still be the person who made that ring, not the billionaire, not the monster on every screen. Just me. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small brown velvet box, not new, not luxurious, worn at the edges from years of being carried and never opened. Inside, a fresh spool of copper wire. A small pair of wire cutters, nothing else. Willa stared. Teach me, Cyrus said, voice cracking on the last syllable. Teach me how to make another one, right here on this sidewalk. Let me get it wrong. Let me swear when the wire kinks. Let me earn the right to put something on your finger that isn't a performance. She didn't move for a long moment. Then she set the grocery bag down on the curb, reached for the cutters. Her fingers brushed his. The touch was small, electric. Terrifying? You get one try tonight, she said. If you try to buy forgiveness with money or apologies that sound rehearsed, I walk away and you never see me again. Cyrus nodded. Once, they knelt together on the cracked concrete. Under streetlight and fog, two adults who had once been children, twisting wire with hands that shook. By the time the first clumsy loop took shape, tears were falling. Hers, his, it no longer mattered whose, and the boy who had disappeared 20 years ago was finally breathing again. But whether Willa would let him stay was a question only the dawn could answer. The sidewalk concrete was still warm from the day's sun, but the fog had turned the air damp and cold. Cyrus and Willa knelt side by side under the single street lamp that flickered every few minutes like it was deciding whether to stay on. Willa held the spool of fresh copper wire between her thumb and forefinger. She did not look at him while she spoke. First rule, don't force it. The wire fights back if you try to make it perfect on the first pass. She clipped a length about 8 inches with the small cutters. The snip sounded sharp in the quiet street. Cyrus watched her hands. They moved with the same quiet certainty she had used to restore his candles, dim his lights, place his water. No flourish, no hesitation. She passed him the wire. Your turn, loop it once, loose, like you're cradling something fragile. He took the wire. His fingers, accustomed to keyboards, touchscreens, fountain pens worth more than most people's rent, felt clumsy. The metal resisted at first, then gave with a small, reluctant bend. The first loop came out lopsided, too tight on one side. Willa did not laugh. She did not correct him immediately. She simply watched. Again, she said. Slower this time. He tried. The second loop kinked near the joint. He swore under his breath, the same soft curse he had used at 12 when the wire refused to obey in the junkyard. Willa's mouth curved just the smallest fraction. That's better, she said. Anger means you're still feeling something. Cyrus looked at her then, really looked. The street lamp caught the faint scar above her left eyebrow, the one she got when they were kids, and he pushed her out of the way of a falling pallet in the scrap heap. She had laughed it off then, told Sister Mary it was a cat scratch. He had never apologized. He had just made the ring bigger the next day, as though size could erase the blood. Now the ring on her finger looked smaller than he remembered. Worn thin in places, sea glass dulled by years of soap and sweat and ordinary life. Why did you keep it? He asked, voice low, almost lost in the fog. Willa twisted another small loop of her own wire, perfect, effortless. Because throwing it away would have meant admitting the boy who gave it to me was never coming back, and I wasn't ready to believe that. She set her practice loop aside. Second rule, the center has to hold without squeezing. The glass isn't decoration, it's the reason the wire exists. She reached for the cutters again. Their hands brushed, brief, deliberate. Neither pulled away. Cyrus felt the contact travel up his arm like current, not lust. Not romance in the polished, cinematic sense, just recognition, skin remembering skin. He tried the center twist. His fingers shook. The wire slipped once, twice. On the third attempt, the loop closed around an imaginary stone, too loose. Willa leaned closer, not touching, just near enough that he could smell the faint trace of fryer oil and the soap she still bought in bulk. Too afraid of breaking it, she said. You're holding the wire like it owes you something. It doesn't. It's just wire. She placed her hand over his, guided the twist, gentle pressure, no force. The loop tightened, not perfect, but honest. Cyrus exhaled, long, shaky. Tears came then, not dramatic, not for show. Just quiet tracks down the sides of his face, catching in the stubble he had not shaved since the gala. Willa did not wipe them away. She simply kept her hand on his. When I saw the videos, she said, Sophia crying on your sofa, Maria standing in spilled coffee, Patricia's son asking why they had to move again, I kept waiting for you to stop it, to say something, anything. Even anger would have been better than nothing. I told myself it was necessary, Cyrus whispered. Boundaries, order, survival. Survival isn't supposed to feel like embalming, she echoed his own words back to him from earlier, soft. Not cruel, just true. Another tear fell onto the concrete between them. It darkened a small circle. I tracked you, he said. Every year, I knew about your mother, the night classes, the jobs, I had photos. I looked at them sometimes at 3 in the morning when the house felt too big. I told myself I was protecting you from me, that you were better off without the man I'd become. Willa's fingers tightened on his. You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourself from having to feel anything. He nodded. Once, the motion cost him. I'm sorry, he said, not rehearsed, not performative, just the word, raw. Willa looked at the half-finished ring in his palm, crooked, uneven, human. Sorry is a beginning, she said, not an ending. She took the wire cutters from his other hand. Finish it. Tonight, no money. No apologies that sound like press releases. Just you, me, this sidewalk, and whatever this ring becomes. Cyrus took a breath that felt like the first real one in decades. He bent the wire again. This time, the loops came easier. Not beautiful, not symmetrical, but they held. When the circle closed, small, imperfect, complete, he held it up between them. Willa looked at it for a long moment. Then she lifted her left hand, the old ring still there. "Take it off," she said. Cyrus's heart stuttered. She nodded. "I've carried his promise for 20 years. Now let him make a new one." His fingers, steady now, slid the old ring free. The skin beneath was pale. A faint groove remained, proof of time served. He placed the new ring in the same place. It fit, not tightly, not loosely, just right. Willa flexed her fingers. The sea glass caught light, paler than before, but still the color of his eyes on a good day. She looked at him. "This doesn't erase anything," she said. "The firings, the silence, the years. It just means I'm willing to see if the boy can still breathe inside the man." Cyrus nodded. Tears again. Silent. They rose together, knees stiff. "Heart's not." Willa picked up her grocery bag. "I'm not coming back to the estate," she said. "Not yet, maybe not ever, but I'll meet you here tomorrow. Same time. Bring better wire." Cyrus almost smiled. "Deal?" She walked away first, fog swallowing her outline. He stood under the street lamp until the flicker went out. Then he got in the truck, drove home through the dark. The house was still empty. But for the first time in 20 years, the emptiness felt like space instead of absence. Tomorrow morning, the internet would wake to a single leaked photo, grainy, anonymous, taken from a neighbor's window. Two people kneeling on an Oakland sidewalk, heads bent over wire and tears, and by noon the world would have to decide whether monsters can be remade or whether some breaks are permanent. The photo leaked at 7:14 a.m. Pacific time, grainy, shot from an upstairs window across the street. Telephoto lens, amateur framing but clear enough. Two figures kneeling on cracked Oakland sidewalk under a stuttering street lamp, heads bowed. Hands touching over a small tangle of copper wire. One man in a cashmere coat that cost more than the row house behind him. One woman in a grease-stained jacket, grocery bag forgotten on the curb. Tears on both faces, visible even in low resolution. No caption needed. The first upload hit X at 7:19. Account, anonymous burner with 47 followers. Within 17 minutes, it had 1.2 million views. By 8:03, the same image was everywhere: Instagram Reels, TikTok stitches, Reddit front page, morning news chyrons. Number Cane Neals trended before coffee finished brewing in most West Coast kitchens. The internet did what the internet does best. It split in half and started screaming. One camp, finally, the monster cracked. Look at his face, he's crying like a child. Redemption arc incoming. Screenshots of the old number candle killer clips side by side with the new photo. Heart emojis, crying. Threads titled, "Proof billionaires have souls after all." Other camp, too late, too performative. He fires people over candles, makes a pregnant woman cry on camera, then cries on a sidewalk for sympathy points. Memes appeared within the hour. Cyrus's face photoshopped onto a weeping onion. Captions like, "When the stock dip hits harder than your childhood trauma." Boycott hashtags resurfaced. Number Firecane trended alongside the forgiveness ones. Morning shows ran split-screen debates. Pundit 1, "This is what accountability looks like." Pundit 2, "This is what damage control looks like when your board threatens to oust you." Inside the Obsidian Cliff estate, Cyrus watched the feeds on mute. He had not slept, the new ring still slightly crooked, sea glass catching the gray light through the floor-to-ceiling glass, felt foreign on his finger. Not heavy, just present. He kept flexing his hand, testing the weight. His phone vibrated nonstop. Board members, PR team, lawyers. He let them all go to voicemail. At 9:47 am, Margaret Chen, wife of the tech investor, the one who had laughed at brunch while Patricia Morales was being evicted, texted him directly. Margaret saw the photo. Oakland, really? Cyrus, yes. Margaret, people are saying she's the reason you've been different lately. The ghost housekeeper everyone whispered about. Cyrus, she is. Margaret, be careful. The internet loves a redemption story until it doesn't. One wrong move and they'll say you bought her silence. Cyrus, I'm not buying anything. Margaret, then what are you doing? Cyrus, trying to remember how to be human. He set the phone face down. Outside the gates, protesters had returned, fewer than before but angrier. Signs now read, "Crying doesn't you and fire people. Tears not equal to justice." A few held printouts of the sidewalk photo with red marker slashed across Cyrus's face. He watched them from the terrace for a long time. The rage outside mirrored the rage inside him, not at them, but at the man who had given them every reason to hate. At noon, he drove the F-150 back to Oakland. No Maybach, no driver, just the truck that still smelled faintly of motor oil and teenage freedom. He parked 2 blocks away again, waited. Willa appeared at 12:37, same jacket, different bag. She saw the truck immediately. Walked straight to it without hesitation. She slid into the passenger seat, closed the door, looked at him. "You saw." "Everyone saw," Cyrus said. She nodded once. "My phone's been vibrating since 7. Old coworkers, neighbors. Even Sister Mary from Mercy House texted me. She said, 'Tell that boy I always knew he'd come back.'" Cyrus's throat closed. Willa looked out the windshield at the row houses. They're tearing you apart online, she said quietly. Saying the photo is staged, that you hired someone to take it, that I'm complicit. Are you? He asked, not accusing, asking. No, she met his eyes. But I'm not naive, I know how this looks. Billionaire cries on sidewalk equals instant absolution, except it isn't. I don't want absolution, Cyrus said. I want, he stopped, searched for the word, consequence. I want to feel the weight of what I did. Not just for one night, for all of it. Willa studied him. Then don't hide from it, she said. Go public, not with tears, with truth. Tell them why you became this way. Tell them about the junkyard, the promises. The fear that made you build walls so high no one could ever leave first. Tell them you're trying to tear the walls down, one crooked ring at a time. Cyrus looked at his hand. The new ring glinted. And if they don't forgive me? Then they don't, Willa said simply. Forgiveness isn't the goal, change is. Silence filled the cab, then Cyrus reached for the ignition. I'll do it, he said. One interview, no script, no PR filter. Just me? Willa placed her hand over his on the gear shift. Not today, she said. Tomorrow, give the internet one more day to rage. Let them feel what you made other people feel. He nodded. She squeezed once. Let go. Same time tomorrow, she said. Bring the wire, we're not finished. She got out, walked away. Cyrus sat in the truck until the engine cooled again. Then he drove home, opened his laptop, began typing. No notes from PR. No talking points, just the truth, starting with the junkyard, ending with a sidewalk in Oakland. Tomorrow morning, Cyrus Kane would sit in front of a single camera, no makeup, no teleprompter, no mansion backdrop, and speak the words no one expected from a billionaire. I became a monster because I was terrified of being abandoned again, and in doing so, I abandoned everyone else first. By the time the interview ended, the world would have to decide whether truth weighed more than rage, or whether some apologies come 20 years too late. The interview was set for 8 o'clock m sharp in a borrowed downtown loft. No estate backdrop, no logo wall, no soft lighting. Just one camera, one chair, one window letting in flat San Francisco fog. Cyrus arrived at 7:42 wearing yesterday's shirt, slightly wrinkled, sleeves rolled to the elbows. The new copper ring glinted under the bare bulb overhead. No tie, no stylist, no script. The journalist Lena Navarro, mid-40s, known for never letting powerful men off easy, shook his hand without smiling. No prepared remarks, she asked. None. She studied him for a long beat. Then we're live in 18 minutes. No edits, no do-overs, you sure? Cyrus nodded once. At 8 o'clock exactly, the red light blinked on. Lena didn't waste time on pleasantries. 2 weeks ago, the internet branded you number candle killer after you fired 5 live-in staff members in under 10 minutes because your housekeeper replaced cedar candles with vanilla. The video of a pregnant woman being escorted out while crying went viral. Your stock dropped nearly 8%. Protesters camped at your gate. Then last week, another video surfaced. You on your knees at a gala, sliding a handmade ring back onto your former housekeeper's finger after an heiress mocked it as trash. And 3 days ago, a grainy photo appeared, you and that same woman kneeling on an Oakland sidewalk, crying over copper wire. The internet split, half calling it redemption, half calling it damage control. So I'm going to ask the question everyone wants answered. Which is it? Cyrus looked straight into the lens. No notes, no blinking. Neither, he said quietly. It's consequence. He paused long enough that the silence felt deliberate. I grew up in Mercy House, a children's home in Portland. No parents, no family visits, just other kids who learned early that promises were things adults broke. At 12, I met a girl named Willa Chen. She was 10. She didn't flinch when I was angry. She didn't leave when I pushed. One afternoon in the junkyard behind the home, I tried to make a ring out of scrap copper wire. It looked terrible. She found a piece of sea glass on a class trip, hid it in her shoe because the nuns wouldn't let her keep it, and gave it to me. Said it matched my eyes. I promised her I'd buy her a real diamond when I got rich. She said she'd rather keep the one I was making. We laughed. I believed her. His voice stayed level, but the ring finger on his left hand flexed once, small, unconscious. I kept that promise in the worst way possible. I got rich. Obscenely rich. I built walls so high no one could get close enough to leave me first. I told myself it was survival. I told myself order mattered more than people. And when people, good people, crossed invisible lines I had drawn in my head, I removed them. Quietly, efficiently, without ever raising my voice, because raising my voice would have meant I cared. And caring meant risk. He looked down at his hands. Sophia Reyes cried on my sofa at 1 in the morning while I watched her refluff pillows. Maria Delgado stood in spilled coffee I poured myself. Patricia Morales got an eviction notice 4 days after I ended her job. I knew their names. I knew their stories. I chose not to let that knowledge change my behavior. That's not strength. That's cowardice dressed up as discipline. Lena leaned forward slightly. And the sidewalk photo. Willa never stopped wearing the ring I made her when we were kids. She kept it through foster moves, through grief, through years of being invisible to survive. She took the housekeeping job at my estate because she needed work, not because she wanted revenge or money or closure. She did her job perfectly. She restored the things I had made sacred to replace the people I had discarded. And when Alina Whitmore grabbed her wrist and mocked the ring, something in me broke open. Not for the cameras, for the boy who once believed love could be handmade. He met Lena's eyes. I knelt because I finally understood what I had thrown away. Not just Willa, not just 5 staff members. The capacity to feel anything real without calculating the cost. A tear slipped down his cheek. He didn't wipe it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not promising I'll never fail again. I'm saying I'm done embalming myself to avoid pain. I'm willing to feel the consequences of what I've done, every viral clip, every protest sign, every comment calling me a monster. Because I was, and part of me still is, but I'm trying not to be. Lena let the silence sit. Then softly, "What happens next?" Cyrus looked back at the lens. "I meet Willa on that same sidewalk tomorrow. We twist more wire. We talk, we see if trust can be rebuilt one imperfect loop at a time. And if the world wants to watch, if they want to judge, to rage, to hope, that's their right. I won't hide from it anymore." The red light blinked off at 8:27. Lena stood, no handshake this time. "That was honest," she said. "Dangerous, but honest." Cyrus rose slowly. "Thank you for not interrupting." He walked out into the fog. By 9:11 a.m., the full interview was uploaded unedited. Views climbed faster than any of his product launches ever had. Comments flooded in waves. "First time I've seen a billionaire admit he's a coward." Respect still doesn't bring back the jobs. Tears don't pay rent. I cried harder at this than any movie. Maybe monsters can change. Too little too late, but damn if it doesn't hurt to watch. Cyrus drove straight to Oakland, parked, waited. At 12:32 Willa appeared. She slid into the passenger seat without a word, reached for his hand. The rings touched old copper memory against new copper hope. She didn't ask if the interview aired. She already knew. Instead she said, "You didn't mention the promise to buy me a goose egg diamond." Cyrus almost laughed, small, cracked sound. "I figured you'd still say no." "I would." They sat in the truck while fog thickened around them. No rush. No performance, just 2 people breathing the same air. Tomorrow the board would call an emergency meeting. Investors would threaten to pull funding, and the internet would decide whether Cyrus Kane's confession was the beginning of something real or the prelude to an even bigger fall. But right now, in the cab of an old Ford, none of that mattered, because Willa had not let go of his hand. 1 year later, the Obsidian Cliff estate no longer looked like a fortress carved from black glass and colder intentions. Morning light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows without resistance. Plants lined the sills, ferns, peace lilies, a stubborn jade that Willa had rescued from a neighbor's trash. Their leaves caught the Pacific sun and threw green shadows across the marble that once only reflected emptiness. Photographs hung on walls that used to be blank, not gallery pieces, snapshots. Faded Polaroids from Mercy House Christmases. A blurry one of 2 children grinning around candy canes, crooked braids, bright blue eyes, the promise of forever already written in their smiles. Another of the junkyard ring-making session, taken by a kind nun who had pretended not to notice the stolen wire. The Velveteen Rabbit sat on the coffee table, spine cracked, pages soft from years of being read aloud in corners. Willa had found her old copy at a second-hand shop 6 months earlier and brought it home without fanfare. Cyrus read it to her some nights when the fog rolled in thick, his voice still quiet. But now the quiet felt like intimacy instead of armor. In the study, Cyrus sat through a quarterly board call, custom suit, expensive watch. On his left hand the second ring, slightly less crooked than the first, sea glass still pale blue, still matching the eyes that no longer looked hollow. The board members had long stopped asking about it. A soft knock at the door. Willa leaned in the frame, simple sweater, hair loose for once. "Meeting's running long," she said. 5 more minutes. Soup's getting cold." He looked at the screen, faces frozen in mid-sentence, waiting for the man who used to command rooms with silence. "Meeting adjourned," he said, laptop closed. Willa crossed the room, settled into his lap without hesitation. Their rings touched, copper on copper, small clink like wind chimes in fog. "When I took the job at Shadow Service," she murmured against his shoulder, "I thought I was just collecting a paycheck. I never imagined I'd end up married to the monster in the headlines." Cyrus pressed his lips to her temple. "When I fired 5 people over candles, I never imagined I'd end up learning how to twist wire on a sidewalk at midnight." She laughed, soft, real, the sound that still felt like a gift every time he heard it. "That was ridiculous, by the way. I know, romantic people can have ridiculous standards." He held her closer. Outside, the Pacific stretched endless and patient. Protest signs were long gone. The GoFundMe money had paid rents, medical bills, college tuition. Some of the former staff had quietly accepted Cyrus's private apologies, not grand gestures, just envelopes with no return address and a handwritten note. "I was wrong, I'm trying to be better," most never replied. A few did short messages. Enough. Cyrus had donated 8 figures to Mercy House, renovated dorms, therapy programs, college funds. No press release, no photo op. Sister Mary had sent one thank you card. The boy finally came home. In the kitchen, a pot of soup waited on the stove. Chicken broth, too much pepper, not enough meat. The exact recipe the Mercy House cafeteria used on cold nights when the heat was rationed. They ate at the island, simple bowls, no silver spoons. Willa's foot hooked around his ankle under the counter. Small anchor. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "what would have happened if I hadn't kept the ring?" Cyrus set his spoon down. "I think about it every day." He looked at the soup, steam rising in lazy curls. "I think I would have kept building walls until there was nothing left inside them. No boy, no promises, just a very rich, very empty man staring at a very big ocean." Willa reached across the marble, took his hand. "But you kept the ring," he said, "and you walked into my house anyway." "Not to fix you," she answered, "to do a job. The fixing happened because you finally looked at what you'd become and chose not to stay there." They finished the soup in comfortable quiet. Later on the terrace, fog beginning to roll in, Cyrus stood behind her, arms around her waist, chin on her shoulder. The horizon was silver gray. "Some love stories," he said softly, "aren't about what we gain." Willa leaned back into him. "They're about what we refuse to let go." The rings caught the last light, 2 imperfect circles, see glass glowing pale blue against the dusk. Inside, the house smelled of cedar candles and chicken broth and something warmer than either. The slow, stubborn scent of people learning how to stay. No one filmed it. No one leaked it. It was simply true, and sometimes that is enough. The end. If I had spent 20 years running from the boy I used to be, burying him under money, walls, and quiet cruelty, I don't know if I'd have the strength to kneel on a sidewalk and ask for a second chance. But I know I'd spend the rest of my life grateful to the woman who still wore the ring anyway. What would you do if life gave you one last opportunity to make good on a childhood promise, not with diamonds, but with honesty and time? Would you take it, or has the fear already won? And Willa, when she chose to stay, not out of pity, but out of belief that people can change if they're willing to feel the cost, was she brave, or just unwilling to let the last good thing from her childhood disappear? This is the final chapter. Pour everything into the comments. The thoughts you've been holding back, the hurts, the hopes, the questions that still won't let you sleep. I'll read every one. The ones that feel like they were typed with shaking hands will be pinned and hearted. If this story took you from rage to something quieter, heavier, and maybe even hopeful, if it reminded you that redemption isn't a grand gesture but 1,000 small, imperfect ones, hit like one last time so the algorithm carries it to someone else who needs it right now, share it with the person you've been meaning to forgive or ask forgiveness from. And subscribe to Millionaire CEO Stories if you want more stories that don't tie everything up neatly, but leave you feeling a little less alone. Thank you for walking this road with us. Some promises really are worth keeping. See you in the next story. Read.